The return of Luna did not arrive with headlines or public shockwaves. It crept into Los Angeles like a held breath finally released, quiet but heavy, carrying the weight of choices made in desperation and survival. When Luna came back, she did not come back as herself. She came back as an echo-altered, reshaped, reconstructed by surgical precision and emotional necessity. Her face, once familiar to those who had dismissed her as a passing presence, no longer existed. In its place stood a stranger, someone smoother, more calculated, someone built not just to be seen but to be believed. Luna's transformation was not driven by vanity, nor by a simple desire to escape the past. It was driven by a singular realization that in a world ruled by legacy, beauty, and power, truth alone was never enough. Survival required reinvention, and reinvention required sacrifice. Luna's decision to undergo surgery was not impulsive. It was the culmination of months spent watching from the margins, watching the Spencer name continue to dominate conversations, boardrooms, and bedrooms alike, while she remained invisible. The knife that reshaped her face was also the knife that severed her from the person she used to be. Each incision erased not just a feature, but a memory, a weakness, a trace that could lead back to the girl who once believed sincerity could protect her. When the bandages came off, Luna did not cry. She steadied herself with cold discipline, memorizing the angles, the unfamiliar expressions, the new weapon she now carried. This face was not meant to reflect who she was. It was meant to open doors. The first door she chose to knock on was the most dangerous one imaginable, Sheila Carter. To the outside world, Sheila was chaos wrapped in charm, a woman whose history was soaked in manipulation, obsession, and blood. To Luna, Sheila was something else entirely, a gatekeeper to power, a survivor who understood the cost of being underestimated. Luna did not come to Sheila with arrogance or demands. She came with humility, with troubling resolve, and with a story carefully calibrated to touch the deepest wound Sheila carried, abandonment. Luna framed herself not as an opportunist, but as a lost daughter. Not biologically, but spiritually. She spoke of being discarded, of being erased by families who closed ranks when she became inconvenient. She spoke of how loneliness teaches you to adapt, how love withheld becomes a hunger that shapes your every move. The plea was not loud. It was controlled, respectful, almost reverent. Luna did not ask Sheila to save her. She asked Sheila to see her, to claim her, to allow her to belong to someone who understood what it meant to be cast out and demonized. At first, Sheila did not believe her. Sheila had built her survival on suspicion, and Luna's story arrived too neatly wrapped, too emotionally precise. Yet something unsettled Sheila, not the words themselves, but the way Luna spoke them. There was no frantic desperation, no clumsy overacting. There was restraint, calculation, intelligence. Sheila recognized that look because she had once worn it herself. The look of someone who had learned that emotion was most powerful when carefully rationed. As days passed and conversations deepened, Sheila's skepticism began to shift. She saw in Luna not a naive girl seeking protection, but a potential ally, mirror reflecting what Sheila might have become if she had learned patience sooner. Luna did not idolize Sheila. She did not plead for approval. She listened. She absorbed. She adapted. And that was when Sheila realized the truth that mattered most. Whether Luna's story was entirely real no longer mattered. What mattered was her potential. By accepting Luna as her lost daughter, Sheila was not simply offering shelter. She was making an investment. In Luna, Sheila saw a tool sharper than any weapon she had previously wielded. Luna's new face gave her access Sheila herself could never reclaim. Where Sheila was feared, Luna could be welcomed. Where Sheila was watched, Luna could move freely. And most importantly, where Sheila's presence would raise alarms, Luna could slip unnoticed into the heart of the Spencer world. Sheila's decision to help Luna infiltrate the Spencer orbit was not impulsive revenge. It was strategy refined by years of failure and reflection. Sheila no longer believed in brute force. She believed in erosion. in weakening bonds from the inside until collapse became inevitable. The Logan and Forrester families had survived scandals, betrayals, and public disgrace. What they had not survived well was intimacy used as a weapon. That was where Luna came in. Through Sheila's connection to Deacon Sharp, subtle pathways opened. A recommendation here, an introduction there, a carefully staged coincidence that placed Luna within proximity of Liam Spencer. Liam, perpetually torn between loyalty and longing, between moral clarity and emotional confusion, was the perfect target. Luna did not pursue him aggressively. She observed him. She learned his rhythms, his guilt, his unresolved need to be seen as good even when his choices betrayed uncertainty. Luna approached Liam not as temptation, but as understanding. She positioned herself as someone untouched by his past mistakes, someone who did not demand explanations or apologies. Her allure was not physical alone, though her new appearance ensured attention. It was emotional precision. She mirrored his doubts, validated his frustrations, and never asked him to choose. In doing so, she became the place where his internal conflict could rest without consequence. And that, more than desire, is what destabilized him. As Luna drew closer to Liam, the fault lines within the Logan and Forrester alliances began to tremble. Trust weakened not because of overt betrayal, but because of emotional displacement. Sheila watched from the shadows, satisfied but vigilant. She continued to test Luna, to provoke her, to see if ambition would eclipse loyalty. Luna passed every test not by obedience, but by clarity. She never forgot the purpose of her transformation. She never confused affection with attachment. She understood that survival in this world required control, not indulgence. Yet beneath Luna's calculated exterior, a deeper conflict simmered. Each step closer to Liam forced her to confront the cost of her reinvention. She was no longer invisible, but she was also no longer whole. The more she was accepted by the Spencer world, the more she felt the ghost of her former self pressing against the edges of her conscience. There were moments rare, fleeting, when Luna questioned whether she was becoming what she despised. Whether revenge, once achieved, would leave anything behind worth keeping. Sheila sensed this hesitation immediately. She did not scold Luna for it. She warned her. Sheila reminded Luna that doubt was a luxury afforded only to those who had never been discarded. She spoke of how the world does not reward honesty, only effectiveness. In Sheila's worldview, morality was a narrative controlled by the powerful, and Luna was finally positioned to rewrite her own. The choice, Sheila made clear, was simple: hesitate and lose everything, or commit fully and claim a future no one could take away. As Luna recommitted herself to the plan, the atmosphere around the Spencer family thickened with unspoken tension. Conversations grew cautious. Relationships felt strained without clear cause. Liam's presence drifted, his attention divided, his certainty eroding. To the outside world, nothing dramatic had happened yet. No scandals broke. No confrontations erupted. And that was precisely Sheila's triumph. Destruction, she knew, was most effective when it arrived quietly. What neither Sheila nor Luna fully anticipated was the unpredictability of emotional consequence. Liam was not simply a pawn. His internal struggle began to reshape him, making him question loyalties he had long taken for granted. The more he connected with Luna, the more he reconsidered his past, his patterns, and the expectations placed upon him by family legacy. Luna had intended to destabilize him. She had not expected to awaken him. This shift introduced a new layer of danger. If Liam began to change on his own terms, the carefully constructed plan could unravel in unexpected ways. Sheila recognized this risk immediately. For the first time in years, she faced a scenario she could not fully control. Luna was no longer just executing a strategy. She was influencing a transformation that might escape both of them. The story of Luna's return, therefore, is not merely one of deception and revenge. It is a story about identity weaponized, about how trauma reshapes ambition, and how survival often demands moral compromise. Luna's new face is not just a disguise, it is a symbol of the cost of being erased by powerful families who close ranks to protect themselves. Sheila's acceptance of Luna as a daughter is not maternal tenderness. It is recognition of shared damage and shared hunger. As the Spencer world continues to shift under Luna's quiet influence, one truth becomes unavoidable. This plan cannot end cleanly. Someone will lose more than reputation. Someone will confront the mirror and not recognize what stares back. And when that moment arrives, the question will not be whether Luna succeeded, but whether she can live with what success truly means. Because in a world like this, revenge is never just about punishment. It is about inheritance of pain, of power, of identity. And Luna, reborn by steel and silence, is no longer asking for permission to exist. She is taking her place, one calculated step at a time, even if the ground beneath everyone else must crack to make room for her. In the fragile calm that followed years of emotional upheaval, Liam Spencer believed he had finally reached a point of balance. His marriage to Hope Logan stood, at least on the surface, as a symbol of resilience, a union that had endured betrayal, separation, and the relentless scrutiny of a world where love was rarely allowed to exist without consequence. Yet beneath that stability, pressure continued to build. The renewed battle over the Logan brand was not merely a corporate struggle. It was a war of legacy, identity, and control, one that demanded Liam's constant attention and moral judgment. Every decision carried the weight of family history. Every meeting reminded him that peace was conditional. And every victory felt hollow because it came at the expense of emotional exhaustion. It was within this context of silent strain that Luna appeared, not as a disruption, but as a contrast. Her arrival was subtle, almost unremarkable in a city accustomed to dramatic entrances and scandalous returns. Yet her presence carried an unusual stillness. Luna did not seek attention. She seemed to absorb it without effort. Where others in Liam's orbit spoke urgently, defensively, or strategically, Luna listened. She did not interrupt his thoughts with opinions or demands. She allowed his frustrations to exist without immediately trying to solve them, and in doing so, she offered him something he had not realized he was missing: emotional silence. Liam's first conversations with Luna were unguarded in ways that surprised him. He spoke freely, not because she invited confession, but because she did not resist it. Her responses were measured, empathetic, and free of expectation. She did not frame his struggles as failures or weaknesses, nor did she pressure him to choose sides or define outcomes. In a life dominated by constant negotiation between family loyalty and personal conviction, between marriage and autonomy, Luna represented a space where nothing was required of him except honesty. That absence of demand felt like peace. The more time Liam spent in Luna's presence, the more he became aware of how sharply she contrasted with the chaos surrounding him. The brand war had turned every conversation at home into a strategic discussion, every quiet moment into a prelude to another conflict. Even love, once the refuge he shared with Hope, had begun to feel encumbered by responsibility. Hope did not burden him intentionally. She stood beside him with loyalty and faith. Yet her strength, her moral certainty, and her emotional investment in the Logan legacy amplified Liam's internal pressure. He did not want to disappoint her. He did not want to fail the family. And increasingly, he did not know how to be present without feeling judged by his own conscience. Luna, by contrast, existed outside that web of expectations. She had no visible stake in the Logan brand, no history with the Spencer or Forrester legacies, no emotional claims on Liam's future. She spoke of life in abstract terms, of resilience without invoking names or past grievances. Her calm was not performative, it felt practiced, as though born of hard-earned survival rather than privilege. Liam found himself drawn to that quality not because it promised escape, but because it offered relief. In Luna's company, he did not have to perform the role of husband, heir, or moral compass. He could simply exist. Unbeknownst to Liam, this shift did not go unnoticed. Hope attuned to emotional undercurrents by years of loving a man whose heart often wandered before his body did, sensed the change almost immediately. It was not marked by distance or coldness. Liam remained affectionate, attentive, and committed. Yet there was a subtle redirection of energy, a quiet withdrawal that Hope could not ignore. She recognized the signs not from insecurity, but from experience. Liam's history had taught her that his vulnerability was both his greatest strength and his most dangerous flaw. At first, Hope dismissed her unease as paranoia. She reminded herself that marriage required trust, that growth did not always look dramatic, and that Liam's stress had reasonable explanations. The brand war alone could account for his introspection, his fatigue, his need for emotional simplicity. Yet the name Luna began to surface too often, always casually, always without emphasis, which made it more alarming. Liam did not speak of her with excitement or secrecy. He spoke of her with calm appreciation. That distinction unsettled Hope more than overt attraction ever could. Hope's internal conflict deepened as she struggled to reconcile her happiness with her intuition. She loved Liam. She believed in the life they were building. But she also believed in patterns, and Liam's pattern was clear. When overwhelmed, he gravitated toward emotional refuge, often without recognizing the implications until it was too late. Hope did not want to accuse, confront, or control. She wanted clarity. And clarity, she knew, would only come from understanding who Luna truly was. What began as quiet curiosity evolved into deliberate investigation. Hope approached the task not as a rival, but as a protector of her marriage, of her family, and of herself. She asked careful questions, reviewed background information, and followed subtle inconsistencies that others might have overlooked. Luna's past, as presented, was sparse yet polished, filled with generalities and emotional truths, but lacking specific anchors. There were gaps that did not align, details that felt intentionally softened. To Hope, those omissions were not proof of malice, but they were evidence of intention. As Hope drew closer to the truth, she became increasingly aware of how much Luna's presence was reshaping the emotional landscape around Liam. It was not an affair in the traditional sense. It was an emotional recalibration. Liam was not seeking romance. He was seeking relief. That realization complicated Hope's response because it forced her to confront a painful possibility that her strength, her clarity, and her unwavering commitment might be contributing to the pressure Liam felt, even though they were the very qualities he admired most. Hope's investigation gradually uncovered fragments of Luna's past that suggested reinvention rather than coincidence. There were traces of a former identity, hints of deliberate erasure, and subtle ties to people known for manipulation rather than chance. Each discovery intensified Hope's urgency, not out of jealousy, but out of fear. She recognized the danger not just to her marriage, but to Liam himself. Luna was not simply a sympathetic presence. She was a calculated one, whether consciously or not. As Hope wrestled with how much to reveal and when, she faced her own internal reckoning. To confront Liam without definitive proof risked undermining the trust they had rebuilt. To remain silent risked allowing emotional boundaries to dissolve beyond repair. Hope understood that the greatest threat was not Luna herself, but the emotional vacuum she filled. If that vacuum existed, it meant something within their marriage demanded attention, not accusation. The tension between perception and reality began to weigh heavily on all three of them. Liam, unaware of Hope's investigation, sensed her growing intensity and misinterpreted it as stress from the brand war. Luna, perceptive and adaptive, recognized Hope's scrutiny almost immediately. Rather than retreat, she remained composed, even kind, reinforcing her image as non-threatening and emotionally mature. This composure only heightened Hope's suspicion, confirming that Luna understood exactly how she was perceived and how to manipulate that perception. As truths edged closer to the surface, the atmosphere around Liam shifted again, becoming charged with unspoken awareness. He found himself standing between two women who represented opposing emotional truths, one grounded in shared history, accountability, and love forged through hardship, the other offering tranquility, understanding, and the illusion of escape from responsibility. Liam did not yet recognize the choice forming before him, but its gravity was undeniable. This unfolding conflict was never about betrayal in its simplest form. It was about identity under pressure, about how even the most sincere relationships can be destabilized by unresolved emotional needs. Luna's presence exposed cracks not because she created them, but because she illuminated them. Hope's pursuit of truth was not an act of jealousy, but a preservation of love, of self-respect, and of emotional integrity. As the past Luna tried to bury threatened to resurface, and as Hope moved closer to unveiling it, one certainty became clear. The calm Luna brought was not neutral. It was purposeful. And whether born of survival, ambition, or something darker, it carried consequences that none of them could avoid. In the quiet spaces between confrontation and denial, the true battle was being waged not over loyalty or desire, but over which version of truth would define the future they were all racing toward. Knowingly